Hey everyone, welcome back. We are here live with Dave, and we switched things up. So Dave, now you're in the hot seat, so you can control everything today.
Yeah, I was a little nervous that I was going to be the host today, that you were going to take all the questions for everybody and I could just throw the questions out.
Yeah, if you can go through it and run the back end, that would be great. I could just sit here and watch you do it all.
Yeah, as strange as it may sound, I'm much more comfortable answering the questions than I would be on your side, going through making sure that all the technology is working like it should. Because the one time I tried it, I failed horribly.
It definitely is not easy, especially if you're trying to get into new programs or switch things up when new questions come in or new people jump on. It's always a balancing act. And I'm glad I'm on this seat while you're on the other side answering all those questions. Because Dave, your mind is just, it's like a sponge. You just absorb so much, and I can throw things at you. And I don't know how you keep all of that in there.
Some days it's more difficult than others. Do my best, but try to get as much information I can. Now, I don't know everything, but I do try to get as much information as I can to help people out.
That's great. And for everyone watching live, welcome. We're so glad you're here. And again, always let us know where you're watching from or just say a hello to us. It's always great to see you pop in. And for those on replay, we're glad that you're here and watching this. You can always submit your questions at theprosperityguy.com, and you can have those put onto our list here. And so the way the format goes is I just have about 10 to 15 questions I throw at Dave. And while we're doing this, we get questions from all of you that are watching, and we go and mix those in the middle and throw those at Dave. And like I told Dave, he's a sponge because all of these things, he doesn't know what's coming at him. We just put all this together, throw it at him. And I just hope that he can take care of it all while I sit back and click buttons.
Yeah, well, I do my best. That is for sure.
Yeah. So again, if you're watching live, go ahead and submit your retirement questions. I mean, Dave, today we have a lot that's kind of more on the reverse mortgage. We've got a couple that are kind of basic Social Security and tax-free income for life. So we're going to bounce around a couple different topics today. So I hope that's okay as we kind of get into this retirement Q&A today.
Absolutely. I am ready.
Okay, well, let me jump on. Let's get our first one in here. And I'm going to zoom out just because I want everyone to see your amazing background, the setup you have there as well, because you have a brand new painting. I don't know if everyone sees that, but you've got this great painting, and your whole display, your background just looks awesome.
Well, thank you. It's really my life. The painting's called My Life. I did it about it's corn stalk. I was raised on a farm where we raise corn to feed ourselves and to pay for school clothes. So it really represents my childhood. I've got railroad ties on the side. My dad worked for the railroad, and really a summary of who I am. And most of the stuff on the shelves are the same things I've collected over the years and that are important to me and my family.
That's very cool. All right, Dave, well, let's get into our first one here from Ralph. Ralph says, my home is in irrevocable trust. Would I still qualify for this mortgage? And I'm assuming this is on the reverse mortgages here.
Unfortunately, Ralph, you're not going to be able to qualify. Now, if it is a revocable trust, sorry, get my right terms here. If it's a revocable trust, like a family living trust, you would. But in an irrevocable trust, that now belongs to someone else. You're no longer really the owner of that home. So therefore, you're not going to be able to qualify for that reverse mortgage because there's no end date to that trust. Our lives, there's an end date. We're going to die at some time, and that reverse mortgage can get paid off. But with an irrevocable trust, that's going to go on indefinitely. And as a result, they're not going to allow you to put a home equity conversion mortgage inside of there. Now, there may be a private company that would be willing to lend you money through this process, but you're not going to get the government-backed product.
Now, Dave, you do a lot of webinars over at cpaacademy.org. And while you're over there, one of the biggest ones that I've seen so far, especially for your February classes, is reverse mortgages. Why is this class so popular?
Because there's so much misunderstanding about it out there. And one of the great things about my class, I don't sell them. So it's not like you're getting a hard sell, which is another fear that many people have. One of the top comments I get at the end is, thank you for not trying to sell us one of these. It's because people want to understand how they work. They want to realize that it can be an option. And I think that's the purpose of the class, is to tell people it may be an option for you, but here's the consequences and here's the benefits, so they can make a better decision. And that brings a lot of people in because it allows them to be able to get some education on the topic without having to feel like they're getting pressured into having to buy one for themselves.
We also have Jeff coming in from Southwest Florida. Jeff, I so wish I was there right now. I just got through shoveling yesterday and the day before. We almost had a foot of snow for the last 2 days, and my body is just like crying and I'm freezing. So Southwest Florida sounds like a dream right now.
Yeah, you guys have got dumped on CR here over the last couple
Yeah.
of days. Nice to have some large snowstorms there for change. It's been a while since you've had that much snow.
Yeah, and it's great. It's good, for what we need for our valley and what we have, but at the same time, oh, it's just so cold.
I remember when I first moved back there, so I grew up there in the same town that you live in. I'd left for 10 years, moved to Las Vegas, came back. I remember that first winter, we got like a foot and a half, and I was ready to pack my bags and go back to Vegas. It's like, hey, I am not ready for this again. I did too much of this as a kid.
Yeah, good thing there's medicine that can help me, because when you're out shoveling all that by hand after a while, you kind of just hit a wall and my goodness. Well, anyways, Jeff, thanks for being part of the show. Dave, let's get to our next question. And John says, what to look at if you move states?
So there's a number of things. I don't know what this is fully in reference to, but John, let's talk from a tax standpoint. This is one of the big things you need to consider is what are the taxes going to be in the new state? Are you moving from a high tax state like California to Las Vegas? Well, if you are, and especially if you plan to do so in retirement, your planning is going to look a little different than if you're living in Nevada during your working years and then plan to move to California or to the beach. Now, if you're moving to Florida where Jeff lives and it's nice and warm, you have no state tax there, you've got the same situation. You've just got to consider where you're moving from the state perspective and what effect those taxes are going to have. The other thing too, you've got to look at is the cost of living. What's it going to be like from where you're at? Maybe you're living in a small rural area and you want to move into the urban areas where it's going to be a little more expensive, or vice versa. Take that information into consideration. And then the last thing I would throw out there is you've got to look at healthcare. How you're going to handle that. If you're on regular Medicare, it's going to cover you no matter where you live in the United States. But if you've got a Medicare Advantage plan and you are living in one state and move to another, you're probably going to have to get a new plan. So you've got to take that into consideration as well, and what that might look like with that move.
And Dave, let me throw one more in there. What about family? Does that really help or change the way that people are retiring as well? Maybe following where family goes?
Absolutely. I get it all the time when I'm doing the planning and talking to people. As people, we ask what they're going to do in retirement. Do they plan to stay where they're at? And they're like, many times, it's like, I don't know. My kids haven't settled down yet. I want to see where they're going to live. And if they live in a given area, I may move there. And in fact, one of my good friends just did that. He has all of his kids working in Arkansas, working for Walmart. Well, he was living in Las Vegas and said, there's no need for us to stay here. My job now will allow me to move. Let's just move up there in Arkansas and be by the kids.
I'll give you a great example. I've got my daughter that's in Nashville, closer to you. My son was accepted into Georgia Tech, so he may move to Atlanta in a couple of years. And I look at that and I think, wow, that could really transition me over there. But I would be hard, because if I just move over there right now, within a couple of years, they could move somewhere else. And there's a big change for that.
Yeah, there's a solution to that, CR. There's a way you can solve that problem. You just have more kids, because you got 6, they're going to be scattered all over the country. So then you don't have to worry about it.
Well, I just got 2, and my daughter said, Dad, you can move close, but not too close. So imagine that.
Yeah, that's the problem I had. I wanted to get away from my parents. Not that I didn't love them greatly, but I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to get away from family because I was raised in an environment where I had too much family around all the time. So yeah, I'd have probably, if my parents had moved where I was, I'd have bought a house and moved again.
It's definitely something to look for. All right, Dave, my next one from Claire. What is the good age for having this type of insurance?
So what they're talking about here is a life insurance retirement plan. It's more about insurability. If you're insurable, you want to be able to buy these products when you are. So it may be as early as your 20s, 30s, 40s. But once you get into your 60s, you may also be able to buy them. It's really about getting them in place. What we want to do is protect the portion of those assets. The older you get, the more you want protected. Good calculation is, say, if you're 60 years old, 60% of your assets should be in principal protected products, which the life insurance retirement plan is. So that if the markets go down, you're not going to lose money. If you're 70, you should have 70%. So look at it based upon insurability, and then also look at it based upon assets you have available and whether or not you need to start protecting some of those from tax side as well as a principal side, so that you're not going to have issues not having the money you need in retirement.
And Dave, these really are random questions. To be able to have these thrown out like that, and you know exactly where we're headed, I'm grateful for that. And let me ask you, Dave, so when we know, like, let's say my parents have health issues, or my grandparents did as well, and I know that's going to be coming from me. Do you advise maybe starting younger to get this insurance as well, when you know that that's coming in your family?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a great example of that. My family has polycystic kidney problems. So my grandmother died of kidney failure. My mother died of kidney failure. My sisters had a transplant. My brothers had a transplant. I've now had a transplant, and I've got another brother on dialysis. My kids, 6 kids, 50% chance they're going to have a problem. So what you want to do is get that insurance in place, just like I did. I knew that there was a chance. So what I do is, in my younger years, I put in the insurance I was going to need before it was ever identified whether I would have it or not, and therefore was able to get the insurance that I needed to provide for my family.
Yeah. Great advice. And again, for those watching live, we'd love to have you submit your retirement questions. Again, we're kind of in a variety today. I'm throwing so many things at Dave. So come on and submit your questions so we can throw those at Dave.
And
And
let me throw something out there, CR, too, that I would tell people. I mean, if you got a condition like polycystic kidneys, there's not a thing they can do about it. I mean, you can eat healthy, you can lower your stress levels, but they're not going to solve the problem. So I always have people come up to me and say, Dave, go get your kids tested. You want to see if they have it. Why? Because all it's going to do is now put on record that they have a medical condition that they can't get insured for. But you can't fix it, you can't solve it, you can't shorten it. So it's another area that tell you if you've got family health issues, I'm not so certain if you can't fix the problem in your early years, you go find out until you can get the things in place that you need to protect yourself without having the knowledge. And then, hey, if it comes out that you don't have the issue, great. But if it comes out you have it, hey, everything's in place to protect yourself going forward.
that is great advice. There's a lot of times that even in my own family, we've gone and just been tested for something, not really found out we've had anything, but because of that, it's all been put on record, and all these things are now showing up that there's lots of different issues when there's really nothing. But again, we're more paranoid, but you're exactly right. I think that's great advice for anybody that's kind of going through the motions, trying to get toward this insurance issues that they're having.
Yeah. Now, if you have a heart attack and it's going to kill you, hey, don't put it off. I mean, there's certain things that you're not going to put off. But with our situation, you're not going to see the issues until 50s or 60s. So again, nothing they can do. There's not a thing at this point that they can do to solve the problem.
Yeah. All right, Dave, let's jump around since that's what I've been doing all morning here. Larry said, what about group home costs? Are they covered by Medicare?
Larry, they're covered for 20 days. Yeah, you've got 20 days. If you look at it, they're going to cover it. They consider it basically a long-term care facility. And then they're going to cover part of it for the next 80 days. You've got a copay. It's about between $150 and $200 per day that you're going to have to pay as a copay for that next 80 days. And then after that, up to you until you spend down assets and the Medicaid steps in and starts covering those costs.
Now, Dave, what if I just show up at one of these group homes just without going through the hospital? Is that going to cause an issue?
It is from Medicare side. They're not going to cover anything. You've got to have a 3-day stay in a hospital to be able to be covered. And you've got to be admitted. It's not just getting put in there and getting observed, which hospitals can do for you, but versus admitting you. So 3 days admitted, you get the 20 days they'll cover. 80 days you're going to have a co-insurance on. After that, up to you. And the problem is, CR, 2 to 3 years is the average stay. So it's not like this 100 days is going to really cover much of the cost associated with that care.
So, Dave, as we're talking about planning, or have talked about it many times, how do we plan for things like this? Is this something where we can set aside, extra funds? How do we really plan? Because this is something none of us are really planning for, honestly, but we know it's going to come for us, maybe sooner or later.
Yeah, the way we do it is put a retirement roadmap together where we take the risks that are facing your retirement and we start putting in place the products that you need to help insure against those risks or help protect yourself against those risks. So it's really about planning. It's really about spending time. It's really about trying to better understand where you want to be and what that path is going to take to get you there.
That's great advice. Dave, I wanted to throw one in here from Mike, a question from Mike. He said, at age 68, if I start a LIRP now, how many years before I will have enough value to make it worthwhile for taking money out tax-free?
Yeah, when you look at it, you're usually looking at 7 to 10 years, Mike, when you look at the period of time that it's going to require for those to build up to get to a point that you can then start taking the consistent stream of income. Now, during that time, obviously you have the death benefit and you've got the benefit that comes from the long-term care side during that period of time. But you're looking probably 7 to 10. So yeah, if you're saying, hey, I want immediate cash flow or need immediate cash flow the day after I get it into this product, not going to be able to turn it around that quickly.
And Mike, thank you for your question. I hope that answers. If not, we're still here for a little while. You can submit a follow-up. I always love those comments that come in live through Facebook and YouTube. It's always great for us to have that and obviously interact with all of those that are constantly emailing or sending messages. So it's great to always have people on here as well. All right, Dave, my next one I have, this one I wanted to put in kind of the middle here, but I wanted to ask, Rand said, is life insurance a better option than annuity if I have to choose only one to invest? I thought that was a good little dagger at the end, but I don't know how you answer, but I'm going to leave this one here on the table for you.
Yeah, in my opinion, yes, the life insurance is better because you're getting the death benefit as well as a return that's going to be very comparable to what that annuity is going to do. So you're going to be able to have the opportunity to get that death benefit. Now, the other thing you've got to look at though too is with an annuity, it is guaranteed income. So we've got to look at your facts and circumstance and say, hey, is a guaranteed stream of income going to be better than the rates of return that we're getting on average, the money we're able to pull out of here, the death benefit, maybe covering a long-term care event. But for most people, that life insurance is going to be a better option because it provides more risk reduction from the risk you'll face in retirement. But every once in a while, again, if you're not insurable or if you are older to a point where you may not qualify for a low fee life insurance retirement plan, then that annuity may become a great option for you to help supplement that Social Security and get yourself through those retirement years.
And so, Dave, what you're saying is not everyone's going to be exactly the same. So the advice you give to Rand for that life insurance versus, like you said, somebody else that's maybe a bit older, annuity may work better. So everything's kind of a little different, but you have to plan for this, right?
Yeah, this is the biggest problem with any retirement planning is no one's situation is going to be the same. Again, you look at this situation here, how healthy are you? What's your age? What other income do you have? What risk are you trying to eliminate? Do you have children or a spouse that you're trying to provide some benefits for if you pass away? All of those things need to be taken into consideration to figure this out based upon a given product. But yeah, we can give generalities and say, yeah, the majority of the time this is going to work better. But do you fall in the majority? Yeah, 60% chance, or I guess 51% chance you do, 49% chance you don't.
Yeah. We had Jeff on a couple weeks ago and he kind of shared very similar that every time you're making a plan, you're very specific to the person. It's not that you're going out there saying, okay, well, Dave, you look great, so we're going to put you in this plan and we're not really going to check anything else. And I think that's very important as everyone's planning or sitting down, looking at their retirement. Don't try to map this to your neighbor or to somebody else that's you think are similar to you, because those paths to retirement are all going to be different. And depending on how we get there, there's a huge, there's variety, right? You want to make sure you have different sources of income. You're not relying on just one source. And I think that's very valuable for people to understand.
Yeah, especially like you take someone in their 90s and you see this once in a while. Someone's got 10, 15, $20,000 in their 90s and it's really not that much money. Well, that may be a great time for them to buy an annuity because of their life expectancy. They may get way more money off of that annuity than they would get off of the interest or the investment money that they were earning off of there. So yeah, it just really changes on age, income, state you live in, marital status, family structure. All those things come into play.
All right, Dave, my next one comes from Jocelyn. She asked, are reverse mortgages available for condominiums?
They are now. They used to not be, but they changed the rules and the laws. They will allow you to put them on condos, but there is one caveat, and that is that your association has to allow them. The issue is that condominiums have rights to property if you don't pay your condominium fees. Well, what the reverse mortgage company wants to ensure and the government is that they're not getting kicked out of the position they need to be in as a lender to a condominium association. So you do want to double check, make sure that your association allows you to have reverse mortgages. If they do, you would be able to put a reverse mortgage on that condominium.
And Dave, I've got a little slot here of reverse mortgage questions. So let me get to my next one here. This one's from Susan. Are the closing costs paid up front?
No, they are not. You will not have to come out of pocket hardly anything at all, if anything at all, for a reverse mortgage. One of the things that makes them so enticing to people when they look at it is, hey, I can get in here without having to pay the costs up front. Problem is, remember, average reverse mortgage is going to cost you somewhere between $12 and $15,000 to put that together. So they're not cheap, but that's going to, again, you're not going to pay it, but it's going to get added into the cost of your loan that you'll have to pay off at some point. It's going to accrue interest throughout the rest of your life. So you want to take that into consideration. I know in the world we live in, if we don't pay out of pocket, it's like it doesn't exist, but that's not reality. The salesman will try to convince you that what's the amount you can afford to pay, and let's ignore all the fees and everything associated with it. But you do want to take that into consideration as you're trying to put this together and see if maybe there's another option that you can use instead.
Now, Dave, I see that a lot at the car dealership. You'll show up and they'll say, well, how much can you afford? It's not really, I just want to know how much the car is. But do you see this also with financial planners or other people that are selling insurance? Is they're just trying to get you into something that's going to help them versus helping you?
You do see it, but there's two sides of it. I mean, you've obviously got to look at, there's those that are just looking at saying, how can I maximize the income that I'm going to get off these transactions? The other side is we do want to know how much people can afford or the money that they have so that we don't overextend them. Last thing you want to do is to have a situation where you've put them out of a budget and a product, maybe a life insurance product that they can't afford to pay. Well, if you can't, it's going to blow up and you're going to have a situation where that was a horrible situation or suggestion for them. It wasn't what you should have recommended. So you got to look at both sides of the coin, but definitely there are people that are trying to maximize that for their benefit, not yours. And one of the things I love about the advisors we use and the planning is the roadmap basically takes it down to where it shows what needs to be done. The math and science calculate it. And then we just try to work with you to implement the suggestions we put into place.
So again, a lot different from that dealership experience where I walk in and they say, I just want to know how much you can pay every month. And then later on, all those other fees and everything, it seems like they're gone, show up at the end, and I walk out paying a lot more than I ever anticipated.
Well, and this is something you got to look out for too. And I will talk about this here. I had this happen the other day. We had a situation where someone had been sold an insurance policy at a very high death benefit, maybe even higher than they needed, but there was no way to take cash value out of it. So the person who had sold the policy, and I'm not trying to pick or say he did the right or wrong thing, but he sold it at a very high benefit with very little cash value going in. Well, that's going to solve a death benefit issue if that's what they're concerned about. But if you're looking to solve an income issue in retirement where you have excess tax-free cash flow, that was the wrong situation for them. They should have had less death benefit for the amount of money going into the policy. So you've got to look at the problems you're trying to solve too, and make sure you understand that it's going to solve the problems you're concerned about. And if it's a situation where you have a bunch of kids and you're saying, yeah, I want to leave them $1 million death benefit, then that's okay. It was set up correctly. But if you're saying, I don't care if I bounce the check to the undertaker the day I die, I want to have all this money for myself. Well, that policy was not set up at all for what they should have had.
Definitely great advice, Dave. And I think there's a lot of things we need to look for. I don't think it needs to be enough where it scares us from doing this, but we just need to be more educated, I think is what you're kind of getting through is we're transitioning and getting more into focused on our retirement savings.
Then make sure that they're solving the problems you have. That again, it's not solving problems they want to solve, it's solving the problems that you have and you're concerned about.
Yeah. All right, Dave. So this kind of going along with the reverse mortgage, Carola says, can I rent out my home for 1 year or less?
No, you cannot. And you cannot even rent it out for 1 day or less. There's no rental option with the home equity conversion mortgage. So something you need to be aware of. The only option you have is if you get a multi-unit property where it's a multifamily property, you can put a reverse mortgage on there if you live in one of the units. Other than that, you can't rent it out Airbnb. You can't rent it out a room to someone long-term, nor can you rent it out to your home-based business. Things many people don't understand. So be aware that there are some very limited restrictions if you intend to rent that property out and you want a reverse mortgage on it.
And there's a follow-up with her as you're talking about this. And she does ask, what if I work from home and use a home office tax deduction? Is that no longer available then?
Yeah, so you're going to have to look at how you're handling this, but in theory, you're renting it out to your business. So, when you look at the details of the contracts, and this is where you'd want to look at it, most of them are going to disallow you to do that business operation out of that home if you've got a reverse mortgage on the home.
So with reverse mortgages, Dave, I mean, just as a general question, are these good?
They're good for the right people. They're like everything else. Is life insurance good? Life insurance great for the right people. Annuities great for the right people. In life, anything we do on a daily basis can be good for the right people. I have no problem at all with reverse mortgages if people understand them and they fit their needs. You'll see a couple of options to use the money. One usually is because you need income stream during retirement that you can't get anywhere else because you don't have enough assets. Other time you will see where you can invest that money. Now, I will say personally, I'm not as big of a fan of that as others may be, other advisors, because again, you're talking about leveraging yourself in a home that may have you may have some issues in the future where you want to move out of that home or do other things. But if set up correctly, that can work as well. I mean, if you've got the right situation.
Definitely great advice. And I look at all of this and it really seems like we have many, many options. It just really needs to have that retirement roadmap set up for us so we can make sure we're not going to run into issues later in life when we're at the door of retirement.
And we see it all the time, CR. We run plans consistently. And what we see is that as people get into their 80s, many of them run out of money. Now, there's a lot worse things that could happen to you than getting down to Social Security in your late 80s. I realize that many people will have passed away by that point. But if you're one of those people, oftentimes that reverse mortgage becomes a great option because by the time you hit that point in your life, you can get a much higher value out of your reverse mortgage as well. That's something you need to understand. If you're going to claim at 62, I really wouldn't advise that for anyone because you're so young. And for most people, they could still work unless you're in just horrible health and you don't plan to live that long and you want to be able to have excess money. But you get such a low percentage, just over 50% of your home value. Or if you can wait into your late 70s, early 80s, a larger amount, shorter period of time, can have a much bigger impact on your retirement.
All right, Dave, I'm going to switch gears on you just a little bit because that's what I do here. I just ask you a variety of questions. Jacqueline says, if spouse claims and dies, does the other spouse ever get part of their benefits? And we're talking Social Security at this point.
Yes, we are. Jacqueline, yes, they would, as long as the benefits that you were entitled to as a survivor were higher than the benefits you're entitled to on your own work record. If there are additional benefits there, you're always going to get the higher of the two. Now, you do have to have been married for 9 months. So keep that in mind that if it was a short marriage, you married a 94-year-old hoping you were going to get that Social Security benefit when he passed away and you're in your 30s, well, hey, if he didn't make it 9 months, you're out of luck. But if he makes it the 9 months, you're able to get that benefit if it exceeds what you would be entitled to. Now, you are going to have to wait until you get age 60. That's the earliest you can get those benefits, but you would be able to get some benefits there.
That's great. All right, Dave, I've got one more question I'm going to try to squeeze in here. This one's from Randy. Is there a minimum age when you can begin converting 401k funds to a Roth account?
There's not a minimum age, but you need to be aware that many plans will not allow you to do in-plan distributions while you're working until you reach usually age 59 and a half, which the government deems your retirement age. So you may have some restrictions. It's all governed by your 401k plan and how it was set up. Something you'll need to talk to your plan advisor, your company about to find out what the rules are. But we often find where people will have 401ks and they're in their early 50s and there's no way to pull money out unless they would take a loan, that $50,000 loan that many of them offer until they reach an older age.
All right, Dave, I'm going to try to squeeze Mike's question in here just to see if this pertains to what we're talking about. But he says, does your team answer trust, estate planning, and distribution questions?
Mike, to some level. Now, most of this gets referred to attorneys that we know as it gets too in depth. If we've got a situation, I've done a lot of trust and estate planning throughout my lifetime as a CPA, trying to help people through the process. Now, again, when it comes to document structuring, individual state questions, depending on the state you live in, those are going to have to get referred over to an attorney, but we do have individuals that we work with that we can do our best to help you out in that situation.
And Dave, it's been great. We've hit our 30 minutes. We've got our friends from Puerto Rico and from Florida, obviously from Utah and Tennessee where we are. But I really appreciate all those who have been watching us live, and thank you for being here and being part of this live show again on Facebook and YouTube. We're very thankful that you're able to come on and submit your retirement questions. And Dave, thank you so much for coming on and answering all these questions. I know we do this a ton every week, but it's so great to be able to just sit down, have this conversation, throw out a million things at you, and then wait for those responses.
You're welcome. And I do encourage everyone to go to LinkedIn as well. You may talk a little bit about this, but I encourage you to go over to our LinkedIn. We do a rapid question and answer session there. Here we take a little more time to go into further explanation, but we can get 100 to 200 questions a week from various platforms, whether it's our website, emails, our webinars that we do. There we try to do just a quick rapid fire question and answer, get the information out that you need. So if you've not taken the opportunity yet, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn where you can get access to those videos as well.
And you beat me to it, Dave. But that's exactly right. So we have many opportunities, and like you just saw there with LinkedIn, go on there. It's a 10-minute show on LinkedIn. It's great. We really just get to dive into those questions. It's really, really fun. Again, we have YouTube and Facebook Live. We've also got the podcast that comes out every Friday. And Dave, you have a variety of webinars at CPA Academy, and you can find those at theprosperityguy.com. You can see the events for January and for February. Dave, it just seems like you're all over the place right now, and you're in all of these areas. And really, the main purpose of all is to really help people in their retirement. Is that right? Kind of at the whole end.
It is. And I'm going to steal your thunder one more time too. And that's to remind people of our 4-hour class. Now that's just launched. Now I will tell you, you're not getting into it in February. Hopefully you'll get into it by March. We have everything laid out, but we're limiting the class size. We limit it to 50. I think you filled that class up in about 6 hours when you launched the class. So,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've got a situation where we're trying to add more classes. We're trying to get everything structured, but I would encourage you to sign up for that class. Even if it takes you a month and a half to be able to get in, we will reach out, let you know as the classes become available. Great course to really understand what we teach. Now you can take the hour increments, you can take these half-hour increments, 15-hour increments, but that 4-hour class really does a deep dive on the changing world of retirement, where it used to be and where it really is for us going forward.
Exactly. And that class, again, it's we already have a wait list for the next class as well. So like you said, we're probably about a month and a half out, but it's a great class. I'm very glad you brought that up as well. So make sure that you look for all these new webinars, new opportunities we have coming up, because we're always consistently adding new things. Because in the world of retirement, not only do we have to stay ahead of everything, especially with things that change in the government with President Biden. There's a lot of things that we're constantly looking at, but we're also making sure that we're educating you. And that's why we have Dave here, to be able to do that and offer you the opportunities to really grow, and not just say, well, I don't have enough information, so I'm just going to sit back, or I'm terrified about all of this. And that's why you're here, Dave, to help answer all these questions for everyone and get them going.
Absolutely. Yeah, we look forward to it every week. Happy to give you all the information we can here in a 30-minute segment.
Great. Again, thank you so much for being here, everyone on live and those on replay. Thank you so much. Please continue to share this link and share all those other places that you've been with us. And we really appreciate that, because it just encourages us and helps us to do more. And that way we can just answer all of these retirement questions and really help propel this forward. Again, Dave, thank you so much for being here, and everyone else, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.